You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
My office is very confident about the evidence in this case and our ability to hold Zepeda accountable for his dastardly deeds.
Migrant crime in New York City. The men accused of burning a woman to death on a New York City subway hit with new charges today. Plus bird flu and human transmission. Why the latest mutation has doctors worried it could easily spread from person to person more easily. Later, new rules proposed for testing asbestos. The products the FDA now wants closely monitored because of potential links to cancer. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Ryan Smith. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. Right now, a line of severe storms moving across the southeast up through the Appalachian states. Millions are in the path right now of strong winds, wind, rain, and as well as some possible hail out there. Heavy rain also expected over Iowa tonight, with storms then moving into Wisconsin as well as Illinois. Looking ahead to tomorrow, as many as 36 million people are at risk for severe storms, with large hail, damaging winds, and strong tornadoes possible from East Texas, as you can see on the map there, into parts of the Tennessee Valley. Now on Sunday, this system will stretch farther east from Georgia to southern Virginia. 33-year-old Sebastian Zepeda, a Guatemalan in the U.S. illegally, now indicted for setting a woman on fire, killing her on a New York City subway. The full indictment will be unsealed next month. So far, he's charged with murder and arson and will stay in jail. Here's what the Brooklyn DA had to say today about those newly filed charges.
There is no death penalty in the state of New York, so that's why the maximum penalty here is life without the possibility of parole. And we charged that count in order to make sure that we can, seek that penalty.
Zepeda was first deported in 2018, but then he returned back to the U.S. at an unknown time. This story now putting a renewed focus on immigration policy just days before Donald Trump makes his return to the White House. National correspondent Matt Gelko reporting tonight on the next administration's plans as a rift is developing right now over visa policy.
Let me be clear.
Incoming border czar Tom Homan says family detention centers could be part of the next administration's deportation plans, saying they'll look to deport entire families rather than separate them.
The parents going to have to make a decision. That's parenting 101. I'm going to say it again. If you choose to have a child here in the United States while you know you're here illegally and you know you're on a court order to deport, that's on you.
The detention centers were ended by the Biden administration. Homan has started revealing more details of what he calls a targeted campaign focusing on undocumented immigrants with criminal records. Some local governments have vowed not to cooperate with federal agencies looking to deport people already in jails. Policies Homan suggested could force agents into neighborhoods and lead to more arrests. The proposals are already getting pushback.
There is nothing wrong with enforcing our immigration laws. In fact, we have to do it. We have to do more of it. But the problem with these blanket deportations is that they can catch up so many innocent individuals.
Another immigration issue, H-1B visas, has led to a so-called civil war among Trump supporters. Tech entrepreneurs Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy defended expanding the visa program for highly skilled immigrant workers and incurred the wrath of MAGA supporters. One lengthy X post from Ramaswamy said a reason tech companies hire foreign-born workers is because American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence. A notable response came from former presidential candidate Nikki Haley, saying there is nothing wrong with American workers or American culture. We should be investing and prioritizing in Americans, not foreign workers. Some notable tech executives have been cozying up to Donald Trump since his November election win. Two of the faces of big tech feuding with some hardcore MAGA supporters highlights just how hard it might be to keep the peace during Trump's next term. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelko for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Some of the survivors, as well as the bodies of the 38 people killed on that Christmas Day plane crash, arriving back in Azerbaijan today. Tonight, 6 survivors still in the hospital, 4 of them in critical condition. Now, some of the survivors telling Reuters here they heard a loud bang before that plane went down. Azerbaijan Airlines now saying its investigation so far indicates the passenger jet experienced physical and technical external interference before going down. However, so far, there is widespread speculation over Russia's potential involvement, potentially shooting the passenger jet down over a case of mistaken identity. The country's first severe human case of H5N1 bird flu likely mutated in the patient's body, doctors say, to potentially become more contagious. That's according to a new CDC genetic analysis. The agency has confirmed 65 human cases this year, but stresses that the risk does remain low. The former COVID-19 response coordinator now saying she is concerned about another threat.
So we have the animal flu, let's call it the animal flu, and now we have human flu co-circulating. And at any time, someone could get both of those unknowingly. Because if you get both of the flus at the same time, the H5 flu, the bird flu, could get the genes from the human flu and make it infectious to humans in the same way that our current flu is.
Tonight, brand new body camera video showing officers in New York State beating an inmate to death. Now, this happened at the Marcy Correctional Facility. We're going to show you here some of that newly released video, but a warning first, some may find it disturbing. You can see officers carrying 43-year-old Robert Brooks by his arms and feet while he was then transferred to Marcy from a different facility. He was handcuffed at the time. He later died the next day. New York Governor Kathy Hochul ordering an internal review and is now calling for those officers to be fired. Here's the state attorney general.
As in every case, the attorneys and investigators in my office are conducting an exhaustive review of the facts and the evidence. As Attorney General, you have my word that we will use every possible tool available to us to investigate this death thoroughly and swiftly.
Now, the woman who claims she was sexually assaulted by Sean Diddy Combs and Jay-Z at the age of 13 will remain anonymous as the lawsuit plays out in court. A federal judge just denying Carter's request to release her identity. The allegations against Carter date back to 2000 and were only recently added to the lawsuit, which was first filed in October. Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of Michigan school shooter Ethan Crumbley, now asking to be released from prison as she appeals her involuntary manslaughter conviction. She's currently serving up to 15 years, but her attorneys now say she poses no threat to the community and says she should be able to post bond while she challenges the verdict. Prosecutors say the jury's decision should stand. The court so far has not issued a ruling on the defense's motion. New tonight in downtown Providence, Rhode Island, a car crashing into a restaurant overnight. You see the damage here. The restaurant was open at the time, but thankfully no one was hurt. The backstage kitchen and bar is attached to a hotel there, and right now it's not clear why exactly the driver lost control, then crashing into the building, or if police plan to file any charges. 4 people who died from carbon monoxide poisoning on Christmas Day have now been identified as a family from Newton, Massachusetts. Now, this happened in New Hampshire. The state fire marshal there in New Hampshire says the deaths appear to be accidental. Officials detected elevated levels of carbon monoxide in that home where the bodies were found. Let's take you out live to Albany, New York tonight, where the state will now fine fossil fuel companies $75 billion over the next 25 years. Those payments will go to weather-related damages the state claims were made worse from greenhouse emissions. New state law allows the state to fine its biggest greenhouse gas violators and use that money to repair homes, roads, and bridges. State lawmakers say natural disasters cost the state $8 billion this year. Reps with the American Petroleum Institute claim the law is unconstitutional and vow to challenge it in court. The new year will bring a new focus on government spending. Donald Trump has promised to cut $2 trillion, a task that seems almost impossible given previous failed attempts at cutting much smaller amounts. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell.
We spent $1.5 million studying lizards on a treadmill, $2 million for the construction of a kelp and shellfish nursery in Maine.
For years, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul has been cataloging what he sees as low-hanging fruit. Smaller dollar government-funded programs he calls wasteful.
Your government spent $800 grand on that.
The new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, vowing to cut as many as possible when Donald Trump returns to the White House.
There's a case to be made for looking at the aggregate of a bunch of the small expenses that fly below the radar of actual scrutiny. And in many cases, that adds up to something that could make a dent, even in the comparison to big expenses.
Vivek Ramaswamy, who along with Elon Musk has been tasked to head up Doge, thinks one immediate cut could come from 25% of the federal workforce quitting if they're told they must return to the office.
Are the workers actually teleworking? Are they actually taking calls from their homes, or are they off doing something else?
Senator Joni Ernst last Christmas unveiling her, quote, naughty list, breaking down the percentage of workers who actually come into the office.
So we have seniors and people waiting on disability work to be done by the Social Security Administration, and they're not answering their calls.
Other wasteful spending documented in the Citizens Against Government Waste Pig Book, an annual event I've covered multiple times. Even in the Drain the Swamp era, earmarks are alive and well in Washington, featuring senators scorning the practice of pork barrel spending.
When you have a must-pass piece of legislation, that's when these things creep back in that are unwanted, unneeded, they're wasteful.
And yet, earmark spending has continued to climb. These are just a few areas those tasked with cutting $2 trillion may be looking at, and we will continue digging deep into wasteful spending by the government. I'm Christine Frizzau for the National News Desk.
Just in tonight, Donald Trump now asking the Supreme Court to delay the deadline for the potential TikTok ban, now scheduled to go into effect one day before his inauguration. The High Court here agreeing to hear an appeal to the law. Now, that would force the Chinese-based parent company ByteDance to divest ownership of the popular app unless they sell it to a non-Chinese owner. That appeal now set for January 10th. Up next here on the National News Desk, credit card debt skyrocketing, the risky shopping trend growing over the holidays. Then the safety warnings you need to hear before you hit the slopes this winter. And the simple change residents of one California town say could easily save lives. We're back. Fresh off the holiday spending season, American credit card debt now set to track in a new record. A new report just out from LendingTree says more than a third of consumers have taken on new debt this holiday season. The National Retail Federation estimates consumers spent nearly $1 trillion over the past 2 months. Last month, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York said credit card debt hit a then record $1.7 trillion. For the first time, Israel now using a specific American air defense system known as THAAD, deployed to Israel to defend against another mass missile attack from Iran. But this time it intercepted a Houthi ballistic missile launched toward Israeli territory. Israel and U.S. officials are still working toward a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Now there are new concerns it won't happen before President-elect Donald Trump takes office next month. One U.S. source telling Axios this week a deal could be reached in the next 3 weeks, though others believe the odds of that happening are low. Trump has vowed there will be, quote, hell to pay in the Middle East if Hamas does not release the hostages still being held in Gaza by the time he's sworn in, but so far has not provided any specifics. That is just one major foreign policy issue that await Donald Trump when he gets back to the White House. From trade wars to the Ukraine-Russia war to purchasing foreign lands, the national correspondent Atra El-Nashar tonight reporting on the biggest challenges that will come on the world stage.
From Panama to Canada and Greenland to Iran, the world has already gotten a taste of what a second Trump administration will bring. Starting in the Middle East, Trump using his Truth Social platform to issue pre-presidential orders. Earlier this month, posting, if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East. He did not offer specifics on how, but Hamas, which is backed by Iran, may be even less inclined to negotiate with Trump officials than with the current administration because Trump ordered the 2020 attack that killed top Iranian general Qasem Soleimani.
We take comfort in knowing that his reign of terror is over.
In another foreign war to the north, Trump's election raises doubts about future U.S. support for Ukraine. During the campaign, he said this.
I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
The world is waiting to see how or if Trump engages in talks to negotiate an end to the war.
I do not know when we're going to meet, because he does not speak about that.
Even some allies and partners are caught off guard. In a routine announcement for his ambassador to Denmark, the president-elect wrote, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. To which Greenland's prime minister responded, we are not for sale.
The president of Panama also rejecting Trump's call for the United States to take control of the Panama Canal. Closer to home, Canada and Mexico are watching Trump's every word about tariffs. He's already threatened them with 25% tariffs if they don't meet his demands for border security. As Trump juggles all of this, China is watching closely. Since his last term, cyber threats from China have only intensified, as have economic and technological competition. Where Trump goes on his first international trip may signal which of these foreign challenges he sees as his top priority. I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
China is sanctioning 7 companies planning military sales to Taiwan. The sanctions are in response to the recent Defense Authorization Act signed by President Biden that includes provisions to counter China's military. U.S. officials now say these sanctions will have a limited impact because the companies do not sell arms or military goods to China. China has launched its first next-generation amphibious assault ship. The country already has the largest naval force in the world, but has been working to expand it in an effort to compete with the U.S. military. China says the new ship will boost its Navy's long-range operational capabilities using an electromagnetic catapult system, allowing it to launch larger and heavier aircrafts. The only other warship in service worldwide to use the similar system is the U.S. Navy's newest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. NASA's spacecraft is safe after coming closer to the sun than any man-made object in history. NASA saying the Parker Solar Probe got within 3.8 million miles of the sun's surface on Christmas Eve. It was launched in 2018 to study the sun's atmosphere. The probe is supposed to send a status update on January 1st, so we look forward to hearing back on that. It will stay near the sun's surface until at least September. Homelessness here in the U.S. dramatically increasing just since last year. And according to a new report just out from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 770,000 people were homeless. Now that's up more than 18% just since last year. Some of the biggest driving factors here: unaffordable housing, natural disasters, and a surge in migration. The biggest homeless populations right now found in the states of California as well as New York. Cosmetics containing talc could soon require asbestos testing. A new FDA proposal aims to reassure consumers in light of a slew of lawsuits filed against Johnson & Johnson, alleging a link between the product and cancer. The company is working to resolve the claims with a $10 billion settlement. It's the season right now to grab that snowboard or your skis, but before you head out to the snowy slopes, reminders here to play it safe. The National News Desk's Barbara Morse reporting ski and snowboard safety begins before you head out.
This is all straight lines, and it's right across the ski. Yeah. To me, this is now ready.
A sporting goods store is where you start so you can prep your skis to make them safer on the slopes. And then there are your bindings.
We're seeing a lot of people, are you losing weight, gaining muscle? Those are all factored into the binding checks on skis.
Age, too, is a factor.
Under 10 and over 50, we drop you down a setting just for safety.
And then there's knowing the surface conditions, hard, icy conditions.
Tend to see upper extremity injuries. If the snow surface is sticky or the snow is deep, tend to have more twisting injuries, usually knee injuries.
Dr. Michael Bellinger knows firsthand. He's an avid skier and a sports injury doc. One of the most common injuries, something known as skier's thumb.
The pole will hit the ground in a fall, and then your hand will fall on top of it and be pushed too far, stretching or spraining the ligament that connects the two bones. During a fall, let go of the pole so that the hand doesn't land onto that lever.
Snowboarding's a little different than skiing.
Dr. Michael Stabler, also a sports injury doc. Well, snowboarding is his sport of choice. Wrist guards, he says, are a must.
We recommend ones like this that have a bar on both the bottom and top.
He knows firsthand how important these are.
So when I was a resident, I was snowboarding and I fell and I injured my wrist and I spent 8 weeks in a cast.
That led to research that showed how effective these wrist guards are. Make sure your board is tuned up and the screws that bolt your shoes in are tight. Another must, a good helmet.
Everyone wants MIPS when they come in. It's just that extra little safety level.
So offering new technology to help prevent against head injuries. Other advice, dress comfortably and bundle up. You don't want to have a miserable day on the slopes. I'm medical reporter Barbara Morse.
Right now, some states are seeing dramatically higher survival rates when it comes to lung cancer. What doctors say is behind those promising numbers next right here on the National News Desk. We have reporters stationed all across the country covering the issues that matter most to you. Taking the pulse of America tonight, we start in Rhode Island, where lung cancer survival rates are now, doctors say, higher than average.
Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths.
Dr. Hina Khan is a researcher who specializes in lung cancer at Brown University Health. Nationally, the 5-year survival rate is only 28%. Some states, though, have survival rates as high as 38%. One reason certain states are doing better than others, higher screening rates among those 50 and older who are at high risk, which include those who've smoked a pack a day for the last 20 years or 2 packs a day for the last 10 years. That screening involves a low-dose CT scan done yearly. When there are high screening rates, cancers are being found earlier when there's a higher cure rate.
A California company wants changes made in the city of Hanford, all after a tragic DUI crash that claimed the life of a local mother and police officer's wife. The driver in this case has been charged with second-degree murder. Officials say he was speeding, ran right through that town stop sign. So now a local business owner is offering to pay for a flashing stop sign to help prevent future crashes.
You see all these intersections with people's memorials and stuff, the flowers, and that's all the change that you see is just the flowers change, you know? I think, you know, having those signs just as a reminder, you know, people, hey, you know, there's a stop sign there, it just sticks out.
Ohio cultivators and dispensaries are anticipating selling what they refer to as pre-rolled recreational cannabis. Kaveh Azadeh says it'll give the state an edge against Michigan, where it's already approved.
I think it's going to have a huge impact on the overall industry in the state of Ohio. In a normal market, in any state that's recreational, it's about 16% of the market share is pre-rolls.
If approved, people will be able to purchase raw and infused joints. Both include the plant and paper, but infused rolls have flavoring added.
I think to have something that's already pre-made for you, there's a lot of appeal to that.
The Division of Cannabis Control says its proposed rules are based on other states' regulations and public feedback.
Grab those tickets and your record-breaking jackpot up for grabs tonight. The massive Mega Millions Friday night drawing. We'll detail it next. Take a look at this, some adorable new video just released here of the giant pandas at the Smithsonian National Zoo here in Washington, D.C. Bao Li and Qing Bao arriving from China back in October. They're currently under quarantine right now for safety reasons. The pandas are exploring their newly renovated and expanded environment with new pools, bamboo stands, and climbing structures. The animals set to make their much anticipated public debut next month, January 24th. Big money up for grabs tonight. The Mega Millions jackpot, now worth nearly $1.2 billion. Lucky winner tonight could take home $516 million in cash, the fifth largest prize in history. The drawing happening tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Ryan Smith. Thank you for watching.